I'd like to start by saying that my professor, Cliff Foreman, is here tonight. I think this is the first time I've given a reading with Dr. Foreman in the room.
It's the third time. You didn't notice me the first time.
Well, my story about Dr. Foreman is at Covenant College, which is right up here. Dr. Foreman, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, was teaching us Allen Ginsberg's poetry, and at that time I was thinking, maybe poetry, other things. But then he got to the point, if you know Covenant College, here's Cliff Foreman in the room, and he says, America, when will we end the human war? America, go fuck yourself with your atom bomb. And I was like, that's the trap door right there. I'm going through that door. I'm leaving the door. Thank you. That's my theological statement. I think of poetry readings as being almost like a filibuster. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll see. I'm not going to speak between the poems probably at all, really, but I'll start by saying the beginning here are a few poems from Lovely Raspberry, which is the most recent book, and then the new book, which is actually, the pub date is at the beginning of June, but I have copies available from the publisher for a couple of readings to do here during National Poetry Month. So I'll read a couple from Lovely Raspberry, and then a few from Glitterbomb, and then a few new ones. That's what I'm going to do. And thank you, Caleb, for the beginning. Worms. Cyclists, as a rule, think bikers are cheating because they have engines. Pedestrians, in turn, think cyclists are cheating. They use wheels. People in wheelchairs think pedestrians have a leg up for obvious reasons. But pedestrians think the same thing about people in wheelchairs. They use wheels. What makes people in wheelchairs unique is that they also think cyclists and bikers are cheating. Their disdain is uniform. The wheelchairist's hypocrisy lies, however, in their use of automobiles. Everyone uses automobiles except worms. Worms think they're better than everyone. Worms think they're more authentic than everyone. This is why people say worms are self-righteous. To worms' credit, however, they aren't hypocritical, except the ones that glide down the sidewalk on hundreds of tiny legs, blithely ignoring their wilted, sun-blackened comrades. Those worms are called millipedes. Those worms are really bad apples. Be positive. Got into an accident with a teenager and was bleeding a lot. I need blood, I told her. Am I your type, she asked. I'm B positive, what are you? Oh, totally, she said. You can't pick your friend's nose. You can pick your friends, we used to say, and you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose. We said it often and understood what it meant. Man lives within constraints, be they moral or natural. Our little lives were limited by rules or laws, boundaries we knew were there and dared not cross. Nowadays, my son tells me, you can pick your friend's nose. You just can't eat the booger. So there are still constraints, but things have changed, and I'd say for the worse. My father says in his day you couldn't even pick your nose. For him, things have been changing for a long time. Regret. I can't bear to look at you, she said, as she ate a banana she had named Stephen. Pop rock. These things are required: a willing heart, a humble spirit, and a mobile phone. And these things, these are prohibited. In the face, too much fatness, or a face that is shaped as a stone. As for the eyes, they must not resemble fruits or be incredibly small like specks. and the hair should contain no kinks and must not be made of fire. For gentlemen, there must be no béarnaise sauce smeared upon the lapel. There are no special rules for ladies. As regards all animals, keep them in pens. As for pens, keep them in mugs. And as for mugs, your sorry, careworn mugs, they must be photographed down at the station. The radio station. Kesha. Critique. That's not very good. Try doing that differently. That's not very good either. You're not very good at this. What? Every day I get emails that say things like, Belz, we should have done that one thing that one time, remember? Really though, how are things? And I always reply the same way, like, dude, I do not know who you are. Where do I know you from? But I never hear back. I save all those emails in a special folder labeled, I hate my life. So these poems are from the new collection, and this poem is called Avatar, and I wrote it to be read in the style of contemporary poetry. Blue computer graphics woman with smooth cat nose, you are purer, more in touch with nature, and actually quite a bit taller than I. And although you've discovered that your soulmate is really just a small, physically challenged white guy, gasping for air in a mobile home, you've decided to stick with him. I'd taken you for one of those shallow, pantheistic, utopian cartoon giantesses, but now I see that I was way off. A novel. After a line by Molly Brodak, who's a poet in Atlanta. Please write me a novel in which things are wonderful in the future, said my new girlfriend, and then paused to adjust her skirt. She didn't realize that I'm a stevedore and don't have a girlfriend, and besides I live in Cleveland. I run a rat show for the Ecuadorians while my invisible butler serves them fake punch. It may sound gimmicky, but at least it doesn't pay the bills, nor does it pay off the ducks that have those bills still partly attached to their horrifying heads. Though I wish it would, because then I might get clear of the jackass duck mafia constantly on my tail. Please write me a novel, she began again as if already revising, but then her words became soupy and depressing, and besides, who really was she? At first I tried to delete her from my phone, then called a friend in Brooklyn at whose pad I'd crashed not weeks before. And she suggested I look up girlfriend in the Pictionary. So we began communicating via hastily made drawings. First of some dictators sitting at a bistro outside in the springtime, one of them laughing, saying, write me a novel in which the undesirable ethnic other has been purged. Then the others laughing too, and my Brooklyn friend guessed, Hyundai dealership? Ugh. I'm the rat man. I can't draw. I want to make things wonderful for both of us, but I wouldn't know where to start. Trees. I wouldn't go so far as to say there's no such thing as trees. The facial. I once had a friend who wrapped a towel around his head and put slices of cucumbers on his eyes and reclined and fell asleep, and upon waking discovered that he could not remove the slices from his eyes, and thus was for all intents and purposes blind, driven blind by his own perceived need for a facial. Design, he had thought to remove dark circles from his sagging, bulging eyes that now were, he imagined, dragon eyes, for he could not see them or even touch them with his fingers, or Medusan pure white eyes, wreathed in snakes, which in his blindness he fancied to be a laurel commemorating his folly, a garland for his senatorial head banked in snowy drifts of age, or eyes that he himself had gouged out with a shoehorn. No kidding, a shoehorn belonging to his uncle. a shoehorn he once played with deep in an unfamiliar closet, or the eyes of a Royal Canadian mounted policeman peering deep into an underbrush where a bandit had lately disappeared, or even Japanese eyes, beautiful, sad, almondine head holes with majestic balls in them. Balls now for all intents and purposes useless, and sometimes rockets. Brand new rockets aimed out from his brain to the world to destroy with looking everything they see. So praise the Lord, he thought, for technology and for fire and the ability to see. But that was imagination's limit for my friend, who had thought it would be nice to relax and forget about life for a while and let the fruit do the work. My chosen vocation. When you emailed me with news of my failure in my chosen vocation, it left me confused but also rather sexy looking. I slumped on the couch in a daze, and my hair was messy in an intentional way because I had volumized it with Matrix Essentials foam volumizer. My beard was also volumized with a vitamin-enriched formula that nourishes dormant roots with essential nutrients, so that I looked like Walt Whitman after he walked along the beach under the paling stars of morning. Thank you. As usual, I dined alone. I went to pay the bill and saw a printed sign, "We don't split checks." I told the woman at the till that the sad and happy parts of me wanted to go Dutch today. Could she make an exception? She suggested perhaps the happy part could treat. I said, "He's broke." She seemed to understand but still refused to split the check. I stole the toothpick dispenser. Interesting about you. What's interesting about you is the unique ways in which you fail to distinguish yourself. Team. There's no I in team, but there's one in bitterness and one in failure. One to nothing. I've taken a vote among myself, and it's unanimous. We'd like me to be slightly less of a jerk if possible. Given my busy schedule, we understand, so whenever I can get around to it, it would be great. Thanks. My last Duchess. That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. She's not. She was too flirtatious, so I had her killed. Now I want to marry your master's daughter. Indianans. When I arrived here, I thought it was Indiana. I discovered people and called them Indianans. I tried to convince them to become Christians. I've since learned that this is not Indiana. I read some palindromes, which many of you probably know what palindromes are, but it's where letter by letter it begins and ends in a symmetrically. So like Madam, I'm Adam, which spins on a pivot. It's magical. I've written a number of these quite successfully. 3 of them are in the book out there. Hopkins palindrome. I caught this morning's minion, then gushed glossolalia thus. Sutel alos ol desunet. Noinens minram said. Famous palindrome. My girlfriend has a freaking weird name. Iman Drew Nikafarchar. The last one is a pair of them. It's called 2 Utah palindromes. Utah, I hate you. We hate you, Utah. I guess I'll read them. Maybe I'll just stop right there. And I'll read a few new ones and then we'll be finished. Thank you so much for coming to this. So this one I wrote this week. The man who was unnecessarily authoritarian with his coffee. He said, "You will hold still while I drink you." And he said, "The matter is not up for discussion." He said, "After all, I own you. You are my coffee." Sinisterly, he added, "This is not a democracy." People sitting near him began to stare, became silent. They stared through their glasses, their heads ensconced in turned-up collars, their bodies swathed in bushy coats with platinum accessories. The only sound in the small coffee shop, other than the authoritarian man's voice, was a mild jangling of jewelry and car keys. For some were getting up quietly to exit, quietly so as not to interrupt the performance, as quietly as they could, considering that they were so heavily accessorized as to be mistaken possibly for metallurgists or German shopkeepers, and so continued the authoritarian man, barking, "Oh, you're so hot right now, ha! And I shall indeed drink you up to the bottom of the cuppy cup, for when I finish, the barista will fill you back up." A small child in the corner raised its hand, a child with a moon-shaped face and crazy hair, waiting to be called on, but no one called on it. I hired a super machine. I hired a super machine to make me less tense. It didn't work. What happened instead was impossible to describe but via dizzy illusion. The guards were, thank God, half asleep, so my friends and me were able to wander casually past them. Does that bother you? The fact, maybe not the notion, but the historical fact that we escaped, if one might call it escape, only to lollygag in the outskirts of the farm town you claim to hail from. I mean, how could that bother you, you whistler of the Internationale, you owner of International, you Edna, my federale, my ex? There's something up with your avatar. What? I hate it. I hate how it looks. It takes not only forever to load, but the cake. In short, it's you in normal mode, standing outside the clinic, having apparently applied Clinique eye-defining duo shadow liner very recently. I don't mind your roles, but this isn't about me, nor about you. I'm talking about the building and loan. Why he ever started this cheap penny-ante building and loan, I'll never know. Fraught with failures, nameable, categorizable according to Linnaean taxonomy, Edna, like the Beatles in your frock. I don't mean to call my own judgment into question. Well, sure, I loved you. And when things went south, I adored you even more. We'd all like to tie this up with a ribbon and go home, but there's no home anymore. There's nothing. That's what she said. I like my women, like I like my women analogies, either in small doses or not at all. It reminds me of the time she actually did say that's what she said, leaving me with nothing but the most childish of observations. Water is blue, and spring leaves spring greenly forth, then turn yellow later on, fall in the fall. A dumbbell of redundancy, yet in all this, I miss my girl, my hoodlum. Explosion of red in my chest from which I know or now believe I will never recover. But if it's to be life in pieces, life in cliches, stripped of words, now mere passages of inarticulate air doubling mercilessly back upon themselves, and life in pieces it will be, I'll retire surreptitiously into a nest of jokes my friends pretend to get. I like my women, he'll say, like I like my sweet basil, a leaf or two from the garden, crushed in a porcelain pestle, sprinkled on an Italian grinder, accompanied by a Peroni. You bore me. You bore me. So be it. I bore you and enjoy doing it. Let us learn to bore each other without worrying about it. You act all shy around me, and that's your prerogative. If I act shy around you, it's because you're pretty and I want to kiss you. I wish I were Canadian. If I were Canadian, I could be boring and get away with it. You'd say, this man is from Canada. He bores me. He acts shy. He wants to kiss me. And you would let me kiss you, not only on the lips, but on the cheek, neck, shoulder, belly, maybe, because I would be Canadian and have scruffy hair and a big eye. But alas, you bore me too. You act like you're from Michigan. Down to chill. This is a dialogue. It's on my Tumblr. Hey, are you going to be anywhere at any point? Lol, not really. Not really as in never or just right now? Not really right now, and I'm busy this week. Okay, I'm too. How about next week? Won't be around next week. Okay, are you down to chill at some point though? Lol, sure, you need to back off for it. Just wondering, lol. Oh, it's okay. Are you going to be somewhere sometime though? Not really, I'm going to Spain. I thought you went to school here. It's a school thing, I'm going to be in Spain. Okay, when you get back, if you're going to be around maybe. I'm going to be around when I get back for sure. Are you down to chill when you get back? That's so weird, who works 6 months out like that? I don't know, I was just wondering. What do you want from me? Nothing really, I just wanted to see if you were down to hang at some point. You have an interesting way of defining words, lol. What do you mean by that? You like to stretch them out and make them weird. Didn't mean to. Feels like you want something from me. You mean because I'm wondering if you want to hang? Just the way you're saying it. How so? Over and over like a crazy person. I guess I don't know how to speak to people. Maybe. Or think about things. Lol. I might be a rock or a tree stump actually. Question marks. I'm going to drink moonlight for a while now, TTYL. OMG, you cannot be serious. I am. What about chilling? I no longer want to. May I drink moonlight with you? No. Why not? I need to be alone. I just want to read, it's called What It's Been Like Knowing You. So this one I wrote, I guess maybe it was, I think it was yesterday morning. It was yesterday. So it's not really refined yet. So thanks for coming out anyway. So when I finish reading this, I'll just go sit down. And thanks Caleb and you guys too for letting us use this space. It's really cool. What it's been like knowing you. Knowing you has been like living in a poorly constructed hut near a smooth flowing river. It has not been like eating one small ice cream sundae topped with unwanted peanuts. It has been more like regarding a lovely gorge as two hangmen hiking its rim. It hasn't been at all like speeding through a cloud of butterflies in a stockbroker's Porsche. Nor has it been like walking lessons and carols with the Down syndrome cousins. It has been a lot like slowly forgetting how to joust while reclining on a Barcelonan veranda. Or putting the eye drops in and being so moved by their coolness as to burst into horrible tears. God placed us here to love and figure love out, not to weep fire the way a construction worker does. Thank you.